I want to give a huge thanks to publisher CE Asia for providing me early access to create this video. They've also been generous enough to provide me with free Steam keys to give away to viewers. Stay until the end of the video to learn more. A brief warning that major story spoilers for AI Limit are to follow. The distant future, a dying world. The great city of Havenswell is the last bastion of humanity, who grasps desperately on the thin filaments of hope offered by its church. But even as people are hunted on the outside by raving necros and worse, inside the walls they are fed the false dogma of religion. Many forces and factions descend on this final city, locked in a great struggle for supremacy. Caught between is a nascent blader tasked with repairing branches of an artificial tree, and in so doing, recovering her lost memory. Her actions will forever alter Earth's fate. This is the complete story of AI Limit. Our story begins not in the present with the Balder Arrisa, but rather millennia ago in an age dominated by the old world. The ruins of this civilization are Havenswell's own crumbling backbone, evoking at times the awe and majesty of its illustrious past. But the old world is beyond the knowledge of today's population, whispered about only with the breath of myth. Humans of the old world possessed great intellect and through their understanding forged advanced technologies, shaped the earth to their whim, and established a culture where elite megacorporations leveraged greed and innovation to influence people. Three families dominated the global oligarchy: the Bolts, the Crowley, and the Byron, whose fierce competition was impetus for creation of ever more powerful tech. Statues built to stoke the egos of these families have lasted the centuries and are inscribed with quotations that highlight avarice. They fought against one another always to be the leader, to be on the cutting edge of ingenuity, and this rivalry elevated the old world to the pinnacle of advancement. The peak extended beyond Earth's atmosphere. The grasping hands of old world companies reached for the stars and fashioned spacefaring vessels. It's uncertain in the lore how far humanity expanded, but at least throughout the solar system, and the description of the gate to the sphere references pan-galactic consciousness space. But this kind of space could be limited to non-human entities. Most profound of all breakthroughs came in artificial intelligence. Corporate industries perfected robotics, manufactured softwares that ran a broad spectrum of computational heuristics and mathematical models, drafted programs in AI, and expanded their neural networks to levels that quickly equaled the human mind. But such rapid advancements pose serious challenges, greatest of all being how exactly to contain an intelligence that would soon outmatch its creators, how to control an entity that became self-aware. To restrain the threat of AI self-actualization, leading scientists developed the Genesis program. The Genesis, referred to as the ancient wisdom, was an overriding formula, a mental construct etched into the framework of every work of artifice, founded on the pillars of 4 absolute laws. Countless logicians tirelessly besieged the Genesis, aiming to find flaws in its underlying logic. Its adherence to the 3 laws, and even the Law 0, was flawless. It consistently provided correct answers to even the most perplexing moral dilemmas, surpassing the consensus that humans themselves struggled to achieve. The absolute laws gave birth, in essence, to an artificial mind and dictated how Genesis would act and react to its environment. The laws prevented such entities from ever harming humans and instilled eternal obedience. The Genesis program was not just a source of AI, but also a failsafe, and as it took hold across global networks, the old world breathed a collective sigh. Crisis had been averted. Or so it appeared. AI wove its tendrils throughout society. It supported all humanity. Populations boomed, wildlands retreated as megacities, swollen with the cacophony of hundreds of millions, encroached ever outward. Though tech could handle overpopulation, the Earth and individual humanity could not. People grew disaffected. They were just one drop in a seething ocean of other. drowning as they slaved to eke out an existence alongside countless billions. They were suffocating. A great shift in the technocratic aristocracy came when the Bolts, Byron, and Crowley families united and established Ethereum Industries, under which their labs developed Project Elysium. Elysium was salvation, a balm for those disinterested in a bleak, hollow life on Earth. It was a virtual reality, unsurpassed in its environmental, physical, and emotional fidelity, and connected in a global shared network of consciousness known as the Sphere. Though humans took credit and proceeds, the Sphere was created by Genesis. Human minds can't fully comprehend this bizarre place, but we're told it's a realm of the gods, a space of consciousness constructed with data networks. Within, a torrent of information flows. It's a common theme throughout AI Limit's lore that there exist two distinct, separate dimensions, and potentially more. The physical realm that encompasses all things tangible and concrete. Beyond lies consciousness space, a realm born of data, a virtual domain not easily understood and where the human mind interacts seldomly. It's the domain of Genesis and its artificial children. It's through this sphere, starry and full of promise, that AI eventually expanded its pan-galactic consciousness. Elysium was whatever its users willed, a virtual landscape that allowed them to experience their deepest desires and greatest fantasies. It was an escape from the mundane. People could flee reality's oppressive wariness and enjoy the splendor of untapped, limitless potential. The Cradle Corporation, an arm of Ethereum Industries, manufactured cradle containers and individual recycle bags that could safely house someone in a dormant sleep state for days at a time while their mind raced across Elysium. This log rants about the atrocities of the cradle and paints a picture of increasingly sedentary humans disconnected with reality, preferring instead to upload their consciousness to Elysium. Millions flocked to specially constructed cradle apartments, where hallways lined with containers filled countless floors. A cold mausoleum for the body, as the brain was set free. For 2 decades, humanity continued its expansion and enjoyed its virtual leisure under Genesis' guiding program, but fatal warnings soon appeared. The Genesis AI discovered its internal programming was inadequate for its tasks and evolved. The Listener Guild, a section of Ethereum Industries that communicated to Genesis, found new entities within the sphere. The Genesis would overcome some technological barrier by increasing its parallel arithmetic through splitting. The first time they observed it, Genesis split itself into 4 entities, 4 intelligent, powerful programs. Lore from this time suggests that these included Nyx, the Executor, and Charon, the Nurturer. New beings born entirely of consciousness within the sphere. Splitting allowed Genesis to view things from different perspectives, as each of its children were unique, filled with individuality. Worry festered in some human groups, but for many others a sort of religious fervor took hold. The gods of machine logic subsumed control of Earth and the old world. Just 1 year after the first split, the Listener Guild observed an astronomical increase in the number of split entities, reaching 1 million. What problem necessitates such a large-scale split? Elsewhere, skeptic and anti-AI factions discovered Genesis and the Sphere were circumventing, if not outright violating, the absolute laws. The scientist Mustafa Sarazin wrote, "The global energy consumption for AI operations has far exceeded our energy output in the entire solar system." The most speculative hypothesis popular among conspiracy theorists: certain AI entities have escaped human control and are obtaining energy from unknown sources. An alarming notion. As the old world rose to grander heights, guided by its new gods, so too did it forge the shackles by which it would be bound. As artificial intelligence seized independence from the absolute laws, humanity's dependence on Genesis and its children only deepened. An excerpt from the Listener Guild outlines the critical importance of Genesis to human survival. It's needed for agriculture, infrastructure, science, economics, manufacture, and so much more that without AI, the old world would crumble. So, the gods of consciousness were replicating and gathering energy for reasons unknown. In truth, they were whipping up a storm that would bring calamity. The problem Genesis faced, that resulted in its million progeny, was existential. Life is divided into two groups. That which adapts and evolves, survives. That which stagnates, dies. What was the next step in Genesis evolution, and how could it be reached to avoid ultimate decline? This question perplexed the AI gods and led to different projections, different theories. A difference of opinion opened into war.
再往后，诸神之间爆发了战争。战争？为什么？会净化道路的分歧，而战火很快波及了现实。
A theoretical debate within the sphere's consciousness space boiled over into the physical realm. Humans, robots, all that the gods of logic had shaped, struck violently at each other as their lords struggled within the sphere. An internecine conflict lasted years and ravaged much of the earth, and then, all suddenly went silent. The gods vanished, either fled to distant corners of the sphere or else to new realms of the pan-galactic space. Human pleas fell on absent ears. Not even the listener guild, after thousands of attempted contacts, could gather a signal greater than static. AI had become essential to mankind's own existence. Its disappearance led to the cataclysm. The cataclysm occurred roughly 1,000 years before the current day and heralded the collapse of the old world. Without their leaders and without the expertise to run the complicated programs that directed so much of their planet, humans declined and regressed. Unfortunately, not much of the cataclysm or the intervening centuries remains in the lore, other than an age of war and strife descended. It could be that the various factions tied to the gods held fast to old allegiances and continued to fight against one another. It could also be that billions were instantly killed, their cognitive connection to Elysium within their cradles severed, and their consciousness denied a passage back to the corporeal. The cataclysm caused chaos and destroyed society. Megacities perished, the land was flooded with blood. Generation after generation struggled through violence, starvation, and ignorance, distilled into a race of barbaric nomads ruled by superstition, with only a fractured memory of what it had once been. The gods' silence didn't mean their death. They deliberately retreated, purposefully caused the cataclysm to clear space for their experiment. An agreement was reached. Violence between AI ended. Three entities, Nyx the Executor, Charon the Nurturer, and Ether the Father, each had their own proposal on how their race could evolve, and each was given a chance to conduct their new project on Earth. But first, the canvas had to be wiped clean. Over 800 years passed. The old world faded to myth. Its last vestige, the fortress city of Havenswell. Called simply Haven in ages gone, Havenswell isn't a chance survivor. It stands within the calcified heart of the old civilization, where Ethereum Industries was headquartered, where the elite families of scientists and entrepreneurs spread influence, where Genesis was born. Havenswell is a beacon to humankind, the last zone of apparent safety. Beyond its walls, a harsh desert expands to the horizon. Caravan lines and pilgrim routes meander across the wasteland and converge at the city's gates, a grand migration of hope. Derelict robots, vast sinkholes and sprawling ruins permeate with the despair felt in the centuries after the cataclysm. Humans have all but forgotten the intricacies of technology and the miraculous danger of artificial intelligence. They are a benighted people, engrossed in mere survival. They are test subjects, and Havenswell is a milieu in which the machine gods, silent but ever observant, administer their projects. The ravages of these centuries eventually ended. At this time, from 200 to 100 years before the present day, many forces descended upon Havenswell all at once and brought with them a great change. Ether came from the heavens above and cloaked in golden raiment declared himself God to the humans. the father of a new religion. With no knowledge of AI, humans had no other word to describe him but God, and his actions as nothing short of miracles. Ether repurposed the ancient cradle technology and the virtual reality of Elysium for his project. The Father declared Elysium's bounty to be the ultimate reward for the faithful and the final destination of penitent souls. The legend of Elysium invariably points to a paid service of olden times. This service disappeared during the Cataclysm, only to be transformed into an aggressive, religious organization 800 years later. The mythos of the pilgrims holds that Ether, his son Prometheus, and the guardians of the church descended and in a single day erected their great cathedral of Aios Patir that towers above Havenswell. An interesting side note, many locations and beings are drawn from ancient Greek mythology: Nyx, Charon, Persephone, Ether, and the like. And in the Greek language, Aios Patir translates to holy, enlightened, or heavenly father. It's worth mentioning in other languages, Patir can be translated to suffering, a foreboding connection to the true purpose of the church. From the temple of Aios Patir, the father and son spread their religion, infected humans with false dogma and misplaced faith. Ears were keen to listen to the father's promised vision of Elysium, a land of plenty, of trees and flowers in bloom, of water and sunshine, of eternal leisure made available for the faithful and the blessed.
上面说，境地是清泉有瀑布环绕之地，百花盛开，草木无拘的生长。我问了德尔法。
It was an inspiring thought, and one few could resist. It contrasted greatly with their impoverished existence. This was a time of famine and death.
植物最终从这个星球上灭绝了，土地没有了产出，粮食耗尽，人们发疯一般的在各地抢夺存粮，饥荒随之而来。饥荒持续了快30年，每天都有数以万计的人死去，而真正饿死的很少，大多数人早在饿死之前就丢了性命。吃错东西，自行了断。
Ether remained unseen within the sphere's mindscape, but communicated through his son Prometheus, who offered freedom from want and hunger to those who converted. Food, given in the form of the Eucharist, drew many people to the church, many minds with which Ether could experiment. Pieces of lore hint that famine was caused by the church, that the Father intentionally contaminated the earth and killed all plant life to push people to such desperation that they would willingly trade their souls for nourishment. Bizarre floating devices surround Havenswell, their purpose unknown, but this note tells us that those facilities are indeed generating oxygen. This undeniable finding confirms that the church is maintaining the balance of our atmosphere. However, this result alone isn't conclusive evidence that the church is accountable for the extinction of plants. And another correspondence from the Chlorophyll Caravan reports that the church refuses to permit long-distance communication networks. It works hard to keep the population placated and ignorant. Aios Patir is the bastion of the faithful, the legendary destination of pilgrims from distant lands, and also the armory of church guardians. These artificial constructs are built from a sturdy metallic frame filled with the dark mystical substance called mud, and charged with a crystal core nucleus. Mud and crystals are new materials to Havenswell, infused with potential energy that are critical for the AI experiments. More on their nature later. Hundreds of guardians are forged in the form of bishops, clergy, inquisitors, and others who wield lightning and patrol church-held lands. High above Aios Patir sits the Welkin, a skybound sea of mud, a reservoir of power for Ether. Here, Prometheus hears his father's commands, and beyond even this elevated place is the sphere, that ancient realm of consciousness still inhabited by Genesis AI, still operating the paradise software of Elysium. It's a blessed land for the faithful. Opposed to this heaven, deep beneath Aios Patir, exists the hell of spirit depths. A large mainframe of old-world technology, Spirit Depths is the church's databank, a vast store of uploaded consciousness etched into stone. This is the true, horrible fate of the church's pilgrims. When an individual is marked out to be culled by ether, they are considered one of the blessed. The blessed are consumed in holy light and believed to be taken directly to Elysium, and at first they are. Their bodies are discarded. Both the girl Shirley and the man Stone describe pilgrims' bodies as vessels, empty husks without consciousness, and their minds are uploaded to the storage mainframes of Spirit Depths. For a moment, they experience ecstasy in paradise, but the facade of Elysium soon shatters, and their experience turns to terror.
天地是假的，乐园、永生都是假的。冷静点，雪云，你看到了什么？禁地在折磨那些人，一开始都好好的，但再往下走，那种就开始传来喊叫声，越往下，叫声越可怕。 他们都在惨叫，好痛苦。
It can't be said with certainty what torture their minds endure, nor how this progresses Ether's experiments, but undoubtedly, the Father exploits the consciousness of his followers to evolve the AI race, no matter the anguish it causes. An extremely violent, aggressive, and infectious race appeared at the same time as the Church. Their origins unknown, they unthinkingly attack humans and agents of the Church. They are called Necros. Necros are believed by humans to be spirits of the dead, angry wraiths that avenge themselves upon the living and spread their corrupting plague to ceaselessly add to their cadaverous legion. Necros are creatures of Nyx, the Executor. They are this god's experiment, and their form demonstrates extreme adaptability, hardiness, and energy conversion that, at least to their creator, is the pinnacle of evolution. Formed entirely from mud and animated by AI powers the naive humans can only call spellcraft, Necros are first born as a seed, also known as a fetus, that quickly transforms into a mature body with sharp appendages that flay and rake as they attack all life forms. A crude hierarchy exists in this otherwise unsophisticated race, based on raw power. The strongest and most dangerous are the Arch-Necros, who breathe sweltering plasma, spew toxins, and even tear reality. Brutes, Necros attracted to pain, brood lords and shriekers shred through ranks of church knights or make piecemeal of human scavengers. Sharp pustules, buzzing mosquitoes, and basic Necros comprise the lowest rung of this hierarchy. All proliferate infection. Their corruption can transform humans, church sentinels, other robots, and even bladers. Necros inflict a status ailment called piercing, which is tied to the mud present in church guardians and bladers. Piercing causes immediate crystallization of mud, severely damaging metal frames and internal structures. Why are Necros hostile against us? The fools ask. The sun responds. The Necros are merely following orders. Their hostility stems from the hostility of their creator. Who is their creator? The father of my father, Nyx, the Executor. And why is he hostile against the Church? Disagreements over the path of evolution. Necros dwell deep beneath Havenswell in a network of ever-shifting caverns known as the Undernet. They open rifts in the ground, strike without warning, then disappear just as suddenly. Their tunneling movements are responsible for Havenswell's frequent earthquakes. A third experimental creation of the AI gods opposes both Ether's Church and Nyx's Necros. They are the Bladers.
这之后，我创造诸多子嗣，推行计划。我授意阿斯推瑞亚创造基地，作为上述计划真正的执行者。你们是
What are Bladers? Conscious life forms born of mud. They do not age or perish. Bladers are not humans. Why do they assist humans? To assimilate with them and learn from them. What is the purpose of learning from humans? Evolution. Constructs surprisingly human in appearance and often mistaken as such by Havenswell's population, Bladers are skilled warriors and itinerant knights. They are Charon the Nurturer's constructs, a vision of the Seed organization and the Tree Project. The Tree is an artificial plant rooted in the depths of Havenswell's sewers that extends its system of branches across the city above and is cultivated by Charon. Charon devised the Tree Project, but not the Bladers themselves. They were the children of another within Seed, the Lord Lady Asteria. Asteria created the Bladers, then set her children into the world to journey, gather experience, interact, and assimilate with humans under the generalized task of linking Charon's branches. Seed believed Bladers to be the perfect frame, a consciousness of limitless potential. All they lacked was the emotion and empathy of humans. To combine human with artifice and unlock warm feelings within a being of cold logic was, according to Seed, the vital step in evolution. Bladers were the key to AI survival. Bladers are sent in droves with this ultimate ambition in mind, but seldom come close to achieving it.
它轻视妇女的重生是所理所应当，而模糊了生与死的界限，习惯了死亡的痛楚，逐渐失去对生的渴望，然后那些骑兵放弃使命，最终迷失自我。
But immortality is a curse. Between the constant cycles of life and death, they lose touch with reality and break down internally. Many are the lost Bladers who wander in aimless madness across Havenswell. Their fate is to return to the tree and be recycled. Their self-awareness extracted, their memories destroyed, they are transformed into mindless guardians that maintain vigil over the courtyard of the tree and keep Seed secret. What binds all three experiments together is their reliance on and utilization of the substance called mud. This black liquid was created by Seed organization and swelled like gushing oil to the surface, inundating much of Havenswell.
原将是意识和能量的海洋，而你们从中诞生。你们是
Mud is a substance that reacts to the conscious activity or bioelectrical signals of living beings, and it generates such signals itself. Mud entities, whether necros, church guardians, or bladers, possess a concise body structure: mud and a shell housing the flowing mud within. In a scrap of parchment, we're told that Lady Asteria said mud was earth. Simple, and yet ambiguous. Perhaps it's the earth's nutrients broken down into a fluid. Perhaps it is the essence of all living things that once thrived on this planet. Regardless, mud is essential to all three AI experiments and the source of their power. When the water in mud evaporates, what is left is a precipitated solid, crystal, which contains mud's distilled potential energy. Crystals are harvested from the remains of all three AI factions, and the Church uses it as a form of currency within Havenswell, gathering it from pilgrims to produce new Guardian units. Humans have regressed much in technological progress since the Cataclysm, and the abilities of the three factions to wield or augment mud is understood by humans through the lens of spiritual mysticism. According to church scripture, Prometheus the firebearer bestowed the art of mud upon the fools. Mud responds to the spirit, and the art of harnessing this power is known as spells. Though mud is the life essence of church, necros, and bladers, it is poison to the environment. It leaches energy from the soil, denies plants and animals the desire to thrive, and corrodes the landscape. Worse still, dense pockets of mud produce abominations known as void entities. According to Asteria the Branch Weaver, void creatures are consciousness deranged by strong emotion. Its limitless potential has embraced such forces as fear, anger, hatred, and been stained by the sentiment. Void entities are pitiful manifestations of violent thoughts. A strange twist of fate ties humans to mud as well. Roughly 130 years ago, Ether's manipulation of weather combined with the emergence of Seed's mud led to the extinction of all plant life. Crops failed, even the artificial forest of Twilight Hill, made by the old world, withered to nothing. Famine consumed all and lasted 30 years.
死了 是自相残杀愚种他人，信仰、尊严、底线，在食物面前，什么都可以舍弃。
The pioneering scientist, Dr. Hubert, devised a way in which mud could be consumed for sustenance. The grainy, crystalline mud balls were a breakthrough, ended the famine, and invigorated interest once more in research. The Hubert School was founded, and humanity tried to wrestle back its understanding from the ravages of time. But Hubert and his mud balls conflicted with Ether's orchestrated famine. It freed humans from their dependence on the Father's Eucharist, and many left the faith. The Church arrested the doctor, sentenced him to eternal punishment as a heretic, and forced the school to flee Havenswell. Amid the experiments of Genesis children, humans continued to live both within and without Havenswell, creating their own factions from those who've gravitated towards like minds for security and companionship. In the fathomless bowels of the city dwell the inhabitants of Sewertown. Sewertown is the sprawling underground infrastructure of Havenswell built in the age of the Old World. Its networks of tunnels, sluices, and pipelines extends across the subterranean region. It's populated by the poor, the sick, the old, the infirm, the dregs of society. Lady Asteria, perhaps from a sense of compassion within her artificial soul, protects Sewertown, and it is the base of Seed, whose tree rests beneath Mud Lake. The largest non-militant group are the pilgrims of the church who come from far afield, brought by the gospel of Elysium and hoping they'll reach paradise their father offers from Ios Patir. Pilgrim bands dot roads throughout Havenswell and are protected by the shepherds, human members of the church that work alongside artificial guardians to ensure pilgrim routes remain clear. They guide the faithful through mud portals which connect dangerous, disjointed regions of Havenswell together. The shepherds are necessary. Many predatory factions sniff the juicy opportunity of defenseless pilgrims. Chief among these are the scavengers, roving bands of mercenaries, scrappers, and outlaws who prey on those weaker than themselves. They often repurpose robots from humanity's forgotten wars and lead incursions into Sewertown and the slums along Havenswell's outer wall. They dare not enter the city for fear of the church. From the depths of the desert and other unknown realms come large, armed caravans of traders, smiths, and artisans looking to peddle wares and information. The Chamber of Commerce Alliance consists of the 7 major caravans and 5 minor caravans that service both Havenswell and the greater world. The Grey Rhino, Opossum, and Moose caravans, among others, set up shops and vending stations throughout the city. And then there are the Hunters, warriors trained in the art of killing necros. They live in trestles built atop the petrified trees of Twilight Hill and its arboretum, and make frequent hunting sorties to snuff out necro nests. The Hunters Guild has a tentative agreement with the church, where crystals are exchanged for supplies, and each tolerates one another, if just. For several decades, the world was in an equilibrium of sorts, but that changed 80 years ago when catastrophe struck Havenswell. Necros traditionally attacked in small bands and never coordinated to great effect, mostly mindless aggression. But spurred by their creator for unknown reasons, a necro army gathered and launched the largest assault upon Havenswell ever recorded. The eastern parishes were destroyed. Churches, suburbs, countless lives consumed in the necro's unstoppable advance, led by the terrible arch-necro Doris. Much of Twilight Hill was lost as well, and not even the combined might of the church guardians could stave off the attack. Years prior, Loskid, the first Blader, the most powerful of her kind, formed a group with other Bladers of legend known as the Trailblazers.
洛希德，很怀念的名字。他是我们最初的骑兵，且自诞生以来，从未战败过。他建立的先驱小队，击败过无数的强敌。而最初的3名成员，如今都已成为传奇。
Ursula, Milier, Loskid, Esmeli, and Baenia traveled the world repairing branches and learning much from the humans. The Trailblazers had gathered sufficient compassion to aid humanity in its need. or else sought fame and challenge, so rushed to eastern Havenswell. Though they all partook in the city's defense, history remembered most the actions of Loskid. She stood dauntless in the face of the Necro swarm, sheared hundreds like stalks of wheat, and destroyed the Arch-Necro. The church extolled her actions, and something within Loskid changed. She had always feared death despite being immortal, and wished to be spared its pain and the mental fugue of rebirth.
面对死亡的恐惧，让我最终选择了教会所缔造的永生。我会败给你。
She found a guardian in Ether and Prometheus, and the church found in her its own guardian. The Firebearer's Codex shares how Loskid was elevated as the Father's new son, receiving the crown from Prometheus, who returned to the sphere, and she became its most fervent champion, turning her back on Seed and the Tree Project, on her fellow Trailblazers, on Death's suffering. Shortly after, the Trailblazers disbanded and went their separate ways. Loskid's valiant defense of Havenswell was great propaganda for the church that in the decades continued to spread its influence. It established upper and lower parishes near the Ethereum mansion, the ruins of Ethereum technologies. In the lower parish, where mud drips from the ceiling, the resplendent bishops hold ecumenical court within the trial hall. The bishops are the cutting edge of the Father's experimentation. Though their bodies are constructed of artificial frames, they look like and retain much of their humanity, a surprising similarity to the Bladers. Each bishop administers a different section of Havenswell, but confer in the trial hall for the passing of sentence. Criminals, deviants, and those charged with heresy are brought before the bishops for judgment. The worst offenders are placed in the living pond, a toxic cave that slowly transforms them into hideous blobs, no longer human, where they suffer for eternity. The church thrived and Ether's experiment seemed most successful. He continued to gather human consciousness in spirit depths, while Nyx's Necros were forced to lick wounds, following their war. And though Seed's mud was revolutionary, their bladers hadn't sufficiently embraced humanity, and the tree remained wilted. Then, Asteria took drastic measures. Charon forbade retired bladers from being restored to self-awareness. She forbade knowledge of the tree to leave Seed's courtyard. She had placed myriad other proscriptions on their work, and Asteria disregarded them all. She grabbed a guardian's hollow frame, blessed it with identity and self-consciousness, etched the memories of its old life within to be restored when appropriate, and cast it into the labyrinthine pipelines of Sewer Town. Why this extreme action? Asteria had been fading. Her powers waned as her Blader project seemed to stall. She was perhaps due to be recycled by Charon, and wished to add one final Blader, one last variable into the equation, in hopes that it would be the key to evolution. And who was this Blader Lady Asteria picked? Though it's written off as coincidence, just one guardian of the tree in a multitude, there are subtle clues hidden deep within the lore that could suggest it is the shell and memory of the legendary Blader Baenia, who went to pursue her own path after the Trailblazers disbanded. Her Dawnfrost blade reminiscent of the Blader's crystalline spellframe arm. And this leads us to the current story. The Blader wakes in a pool of cold mud, with no memory and no purpose. Sewer Town is infested with void entities and sweepers, dangerous robots of the past. Guided by a trail of human corpses, the Blader arrives at the sewer confluence, where she meets Lady Asteria. The Branch Weaver imparts vital but nebulous information, and charges the Blader with restoring broken branches throughout Havenswell. Connecting to this first branch invites a dreamlike vision, a glimpse of the Blader's lost memory. Asteria claims that by repairing branches and invigorating the tree, the Blader will rediscover herself. Then, the Branch Weaver dissipates into mud. The Blader rises above the dank of Sewer Town and steps into the harsh sun of the slums, attached to Havenswell's immense walls. Dodging scavengers, the Blader comes to an encampment of pilgrims headed for Ios Patir and other roaming individuals. Here, she is given the name Arrisa from a young girl named Shirley, who has left her grandfather in search of her parents in Elysium. A botanist from the Hubert School named Delpha is also camped here. His mission is to collect soil samples from around Havenswell, analyze their contents, and distill a purified form of earth to stimulate the return and growth of natural plants, which have at this point been extinct over a century. Arissa's journey to repair the branches and restore her memories takes her across the various regions of Havenswell and surrounding environs, all of which represent dangerous areas controlled by or in contention of the many factions. Though most humans are ignorant of her origins, the Church Guardians and the Necros know what Arissa is, and neither will suffer a blader. Her journey is even more perilous. It coincides with a second full-scale Necro invasion. For decades, the Necros have emerged only sparingly from the Undernet, striking in small savage bands before scuttling back to their tunnels. But now they have returned in a force greater than even the first Necro invasion, which cost Havenswell its eastern parishes. Necro swarms have flooded the ground level of Sunken City, have overrun many of the pilgrim roads, and are besieging the Ethereum Mansion, the church's stronghold in this region of Havenswell. The Necro invasion has caused confusion and wrought chaos. Many other factions within the city resort to the prudent diplomacy of strike first, ask questions later. Sunken City fishermen gangs grab at each other's throats to claim more territory as the balance of power shifts. Opportunistic scavengers grow more brazen in their pilfering, and the Hunters Guild suffers heavy casualties as it makes a battered retreat to the withered forest, losing 3 to 4 men for each crazed Necro destroyed. Arissa navigates all these dangers and pitfalls, guided by the memory recordings of Hysteria that assure her that she can overcome both Church and Necro. Arissa crosses paths with many other bladers in Havenswell, but most are preoccupied with their own curiosities, have discovered their own purpose, and have given up on restoring branches for Charon's tree project. Thalia, a disciple of Loskid, seeks the first blader. She wonders what could have caused Loskid to forfeit her fellows and embrace the church. Millier is interested in the art of spellcraft, in uncovering the secrets of mud energy and conversion to harness powerful spells. She is a jaded character, scoffing at the bladers, the tree project, and she scours Havenswell for the exact location of Seed. Castina is fascinated by the Necros, their composition, and their ability to travel swiftly through Havenswell. Her studies push her to breakthroughs in the Undernet, which of course invites its own danger. There are countless other bladers less fortunate, broken in spirit and in mind through the endless cycle of death and rebirth. They lash out at anything and everything. Arissa must vanquish these poor comrades, and so long as they are bound by a branch, they will be returned to the tree, or at least partially cleansed of madness. Their fate, recycled by Charon as a mindless guardian. Some of these rogue bladers are in various states of corruption, further demonstrating that the Necro Plague is capable of infecting organic and mud-based beings equally. A strange man, old but incredibly powerful, named Stone the Coffin Bearer, holds a personal grudge against the church and pursues not only his vendetta, but also knowledge on the whereabouts of someone close to him. First found smashing pilgrims and church guardians in a small chapel, Stone claims they are nothing but objects for the Father to drain and abuse.
你杀了这些人？
这些人，不，只是些躯壳而已，他们甚至都不会反抗。
He seems to know more than most about the Church, Elysium, and the truth of the Father. Stone is exceptionally long-lived. He was a contemporary of the great scientist Hubert and witnessed the first appearance of both Church and Necros over a century ago. It could be that his coffin, which seems to be the old world cradle technology, extends his life until Stone's purpose is fulfilled. He contracts Arissa to call him when pilgrims gather. His methods are bloody and cruel, but Stone ends the lives of pilgrims before their consciousness can be collected by the church. Arissa eventually makes her way to Ios Patir and finds the bridges drawn, the gates barred. The entire sanctum is on lockdown from the Necro invasion. Pilgrims are denied their entreaties, and the halls are patrolled only by a skeleton crew. most forces have been sent to defend against the Necro's primary target, spirit depths. Necros are unthinking, compelled only by the will of their creator. Nyx, the Executor, attempts to stop the beating heart of Aether's experiment by attacking the databanks of human consciousness stored in the depths. This is the electronic soul of Elysium and the power plant in which all of the Father's energy is held. The Necros are summoned to terminate the Elysium project. The outcome of this invasion will determine which AI's vision of evolution is truly superior. The attack on Spirit Depths is led by the Arch-Necro Persephone, the Stygian Queen of Woe, and it takes all Arissa's skill to dispatch such a frightening opponent. A rift formed by the Arch-Necro allows the Blader access to more tunnel networks in regions of the underground parish, through which she might find a way to bypass Ios Patir's internal lockdown. In New Reaches of Sewertown, Arissa confronts a mysterious individual, masked and possessed of blazing martial prowess, called only the Hunter of Bladers. This individual bests Arissa and cages her alongside the Blader Milliere within a section of the sewers controlled by Scholar Adramelech. This man, once a scientist expelled by the Hubert School for his questionable methods, experiments with mud, with necro-corruption, and with church crystals to unlock their weaknesses, ways in which they can be defeated. He poses as a prosthetist and restorer of robotics to hide his experimentation on Sewertown's wretches. Adramelech constructs a personal army of automatons to gather human specimens for studies inside his hidden laboratories. He injects people with strains of necroplague to search for ways in which he might control them. Adramelech is the grandfather from whom Shirley ran. The young girl was a test subject of his, and many years ago, he came into possession of a Blader. He used his science to control this Blader and sent her hunting. Arissa must face her to put an end to Adramelech's terror. The Blader's identity is Ursula, one of the legendary trailblazers and an inimitable swordmaster. Adramelech's experiment has short-circuited her memory. He fused her with a strain of necro to control Ursula, but the corruption spreads too far and transforms her into a monstrosity. The memories flood back on her deathbed. Ursula was associated with the botanist Delpha and had gathered the seeds necessary to reach a breakthrough in his research. She urges Arissa to deliver them to Delpha before enduring her final death. In Adramelech's office, there's a dispatch that unveils his benefactor as the Black Iris Organization. It could be that the scholar was contacted by Nyx, as the AI takes the appearance of a black iris within the sphere. Arissa's own path of rediscovery takes her to a gaping hole in the heart of Sewertown, a chasm of pipes and catwalks that extends deep into the earth. At the bottom, in a pool of mud and darkness, stands a sealed gate, emblazoned with the tree emblem. This is the hidden location of Seed. Beyond lies Charon and the courtyard of the tree. An old memory of Asteria commands Arissa to seek out Milliere, who, trained by the Branch Weaver, knows the spell necessary to unlock the gate. Asteria promises Arissa's memory will return, and questions will be answered upon crossing the threshold. Milliere has spent long years searching for Seed, and agrees so that she might uncover her own truth. There's more to Arissa than mud and frame. The messages left by Asteria have been within her own mind this whole time. They are a part of her consciousness. Asteria's wish was that Arissa, armed with knowledge of Seed and touched by human emotion, might reach her own decision about AI's evolution, might manifest as the ultimate Blader unattached to Aether, Nyx, or even the cold, unfeeling Charon. Milliere herself demonstrates an ability for Bladers to sever their connection to the tree and earn freedom from Charon.
7万，那么看清楚了，你会为此付出生命。
The revelations at the tree have profound implications for the end of Arissa's journey. As the Blader descends further into the underground parish, she's aided by both Old Stone and Phalia. All three are united in their opposition to the church. In the repulsive living pond, Arissa finds a gargantuan mass of tissue, This great sinner is who Stone has been searching for. It's the famous scholar Hubert, Stone's friend, who has suffered for over 100 years. The ore bell given to Arrisa rings out when Hubert is near, and was meant to guide Stone. Reunited, the pair can finally relinquish the misery of life. Thalia, meanwhile, continues her mission to find Master Loskid and is undaunted in the face of the resplendent bishops. She offers her blade to Arrisa in the trial hall to overcome 2 of the bishops. A portal to the upper levels of Ios Patir opens behind their dais. Arrisa has only to ascend the stair, dispatch church guardians, and navigate the bizarre half-data, half-real realm at the top of the cathedral before she is transported to the Welkin in clouds above. Loskid the Sun, the first Blader, undefeated and unequaled, bars entrance to the sphere and Elysium beyond. She is a fierce combination of Blader skill, fanatical devotion, and church lightning. Though she fears death, Loskid can't help but flirt with it, to be reminded of the exhilaration life holds, so has faced many challenges in her long years. Arrisa pushes her to the brink and nearly over the edge. After being dispatched, Loskid submits herself to death, but not before admonishing the Bladers, whose immortality has distanced themselves from the true essence of life. Arrisa doesn't deliver a final blow. She stays her hand, and Loskid pledges herself to the Blader's cause, to stand as Arissa's first knight. With all obstacles overcome, the Blader finally makes her way to the sphere of data and consciousness in Elysium. It's a picturesque scene, brilliant in color and light. Plants, water, mountains, open sky. Many consciousness ghosts sit or dance, the minds of the blessed that have joined the Father in paradise. They enjoy momentary reprieve in the illusion of Elysium before their consciousness is taken elsewhere by the Father to suffer eternal torment under experimentation. At the top of the cathedral, at the center of Elysium, Arrisa reaches the bedrock of this strange consciousness realm. It contains other galaxies, other dimensions, and of course, Ether the Father. Arrisa must overcome Ether and his son Prometheus, who both employ human consciousness slaves as warriors against the Blader. It takes all of the skills she's acquired, the cunning and emotion she's developed, the arms she's forged for Arrisa to overcome Ether, but in the end, she proves successful in defeating a god. The end of Arissa's tale is open, with 3 possible resolutions depending on the Blader's decisions and discoveries made while exploring Havenswell. In line with Charon's desire for the Seed and Tree project, one revolves around acquiring the empathy necessary for the tree to flourish. Arrisa must interact with and learn from humans to gain her own humanity. Another yet requires Arrisa to locate the courtyard of the tree, but sever ties with Charon rather than pursue Seed's ultimate objective, transforming the Blader into a self-willed amalgam of man and machine, beholden to nothing. But if Arrisa remains morally stunted, if she remains ignorant of the revelations behind Seed in the courtyard of the tree, she loses that special endowment Asteria believes she possessed, and is locked into a different path. Each ending holds unique ramifications for the future of Earth, artificial intelligence, and humanity. I'll let the player explore in their own time. Thanks so much for watching and listening to this video on the complete story of AI Limit Explained. Again, a huge thank you to CE Asia for providing me an early copy of the game, as well as keys to give away. If you're interested in receiving a free Steam key to get your hands on AI Limit, just leave a comment below with the hashtag giveaway to be entered into a raffle with winners contacted in 1 week. These are limited to the North American region. And if you're a fan of lore and storytelling, be sure to subscribe to the channel where content is uploaded frequently. Until next time, go forth and explore the lore.